Oh.
So that one's been tested. I did say yes. It doesn't work. It's not my preference. It's my preference. That's my preference. Do you have a-
Charlie, are you ready? Good evening. The meeting of the Board of Directors of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority is now called to order. Kelly, roll call, please.
Director Kennett,
Here.
Director Flaher,
Here.
Director Chapman. Here. Director Alexander. Here. Director Potter.
Here.
Director Gill.
Here. So, thank you. The full board is here. So let's move to the next item. Is it okay? Before I just move to the next item, kindly ask Kelly if she has couple announcement. Kelly, could you please go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to welcome you all to our first remote, our hybrid remote in-person meeting since COVID. I think we have a really wonderful setup here that Caroline has put a lot of extra work in to make happen. And I just ask that you have patience with us tonight as we move through this first meeting with this setup. And we'll be identifying any bugs we need to fix, but I don't anticipate any problems, but I do appreciate your patience if you encounter some. I do want to also announce that all votes will continue to be by roll call vote. You're welcome to vote on your iPads if you'd like. But in order to memorialize the voting for the members of the public and for our one board member who's meeting remotely with us tonight, we'll be doing roll call vote. And then the last but not least, please do lean into your mic. If you don't hear your voice come through the speakers, it will not be caught on the recording. So it's a habit we have to get back into. As you recall, when we first got the microphones, we were constantly asking you to lean in and speak up. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move to the next item is a public comments. The portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matters not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Approval of the minutes. Do we have any public? Do we speak at this? Okay, so approval of the minutes. The first minutes is September 22nd, 2022. Kindly ask the board if they have any question about this item.
I'll move to approve those minutes. Second.
Kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There none. None.
So none, then we have the motion moved by Director Kennett and then seconded by Director Potter. Kindly ask Kelly roll call vote, please.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Abstain.
Director Chapman. Yes. Director Alexander. Yes. Director Potter.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. So out of 6, 5 is say yes, and then 1 is abstention. So eventually that resolution is passed. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next one is August 25th, 2022 special meeting. And again, I'm kindly ask the board if they have any questions about this item.
Move approval of these minutes.
Second.
Kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
I see none.
None. So we have the motion moved by Director Potter and seconded by Director Chairman. Kindly ask Kelly roll call vote, please.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes. Sorry.
Director Chapman. Yes. Director Alexander. Yes. Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. This resolution is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And I'm going to be moved to the next item is a approval of the consent item. And kindly, there are actually two items under this consent calendar. I'm kindly ask the board if there are any changes to the consent calendar at this time. If is there not,
Move approval of the consent calendar. I'll second.
kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on these two items. Ma'am, so we have the motion moved by Director Potter and seconded by Director Kennett, and kindly ask Kelly. Roll call vote, please.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. Yeah, this is passed unanimously as well. Thank you. New business. The member of the public will have the opportunity to comment on any matters on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Under the new business, there is the first item is appoint director to fill Director 4, District 4 seat for remainder of the current term. Kelly is going to be presented. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I have asked and solicited the help of legal counsel to jump in, but I'll introduce this item, and then if he has any comments to add, he's welcome to. I wanted to I'm Kelly, clerk of the board. On August 11th, our esteemed Director Dorsey Moore submitted his resignation from the board effective on August 26th. And the Enabling Act, as it says in the report, states that any vacancy can be filled either by appointment or by calling an election. And at your meeting of the board on August 25th, you voted to fill the vacancy by appointment. So per our board operating rules and procedures, the chair appointed a 3-member nominating committee who reviewed the one application that we received. And Director Gill appointed himself, Director Kennett and Director Chapman to the nominating committee. The District 4 vacancy was publicly posted for 3 weeks at 3 places within the district. It included 2 libraries, 1 community center, and it was posted at 2 authority preserves, as well as on our administrative offices posting board outside of this building. The website was updated to reflect that we had the vacancy, and all the outreach included a link or a QR code directing interested public members to the application on the website. As I said, staff vetted 1 application, and it was attached to your report as Exhibit B, vetted for residency eligibility to sit as the District 4 director, and we forwarded that application to the nominating committee. We did invite the candidate, who was Garnetta Annabelle, to attend the meeting tonight, although she had other plans to be out, I believe, out of the country. And so she was unable to come tonight. I believe there is someone here to speak on her behalf. And then just to let you know, if in fact Garnetta is appointed to the District 4 vacancy, we will immediately open recruitment to fill her current seat on the CAC, which will be a 45-day recruitment period. So, Mr. Legal Counsel, if you'd like to discuss the process, we would need a motion to appoint. We would like to hear from the nominating committee on what the recommendation is, and we can hear up to 3 motions. But as soon as, we'll start with the last motion if there's more than 1 motion, and if a candidate receives 4 or more votes, the item is approved with a vote.
Before we start the process, legal counsel has to say anything.
Good evening, directors. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, I don't have COVID. I've tested negative, but I've got a nasty little bug. So there's only 1 candidate, so you won't have more than 1 motion. So I think first allow, it sounds like there is somebody for the candidate to speak tonight. Allow them 3 minutes to speak, and then ask if any other members of the public wish to speak. And then, Mr. Chair, if you would then entertain a motion and a second, then you can consider the nomination. And unless anyone has any questions, I have nothing further.
I do have, it's a procedural question, assuming Garnetta is approved. And we're so close to an election, just normally an appointed member of the board has to run for confirmation in the next election, which I guess in this case is 2 years. Is that right?
That's correct. So what you're doing is you're filling the vacancy that Director Moore left, and his term was not up until November, or actually the very first week of December 2024. So if you appoint Ms. Annable to the position, then she will fill out the balance of Director Moore's term.
Any other director has any other question to ask Bill?
I don't have a question. I was just going to speak, Tara, on behalf of the subcommittee. I did have an opportunity to speak to
Yeah, please.
Ms. Hannibal, and I found her application exemplary, and I'm very excited to see her come back to the board. And I know she's very excited to do this as well. So I know there's somebody in the audience that probably wants to speak on her behalf, but I would like to make the motion to appoint Garnetta Annable as the director for the remaining term.
I'd like to second that motion. I understand Garnetta has a bit of a history with this organization. So-
Yeah. I actually, so the full board is actually not only Vicky and then I think the director chairman, they don't work with her, but most of the board is work with Garnetta in task, and she did a fantastic job, and I'm happy to support her and then need her our next District 4 board of directors. So before we do that, I want to finally ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments or want to speak on behalf of Garnetta, please do. So I have one card, it's Kathy Sutherland. So she's going to be speak on the behalf of Garnetta Annable. Kathy, please.
Okay, so see the timer, and you can go ahead and start. I won't take that. Good evening, directors. My name is Kathy Sutherland, and I am a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee and have served with Garnetta Annable for many, many years. I can't think of anybody more qualified to fill this position. And I know that Garnetta really does consider it an honor, and she is ready to go. There's no learning curve for her. As soon as she joins your board, she'll be right there. And I wholeheartedly hope that you can support her appointment to this position. Thank you very much. And Garnetta thanks you too. She is traveling, so she asked me to come speak for her. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have any other member of the public would make any comments or any? Thank you. So then, do we need the vote? Yeah, okay. So would you please kindly roll call vote?
Give me one. I'm attempting to fill in the name of this. Okay, let's try.
Please.
Oh, we're ready. Thank you for your patience. We'll see what comes up on the screen. It's not saving Garnetta's name into the motion, but I'll try it again if it doesn't show up right. Mr. Chair, if you would call for a motion in a second.
Yeah, so we already have the motion approved by Director Chapman. Seconded, I didn't see that. Yeah, but on the screen. Oh, yeah. So the seconded by Director Kenneth. So roll call vote, please.
If you would allow me to try to get the name to fill into the motion, I apologize, but I'm gonna try that again.
Fail. No. It's a glitch. Software. Yes. Finally, okay, so.
Thank you for your patience.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. Good job. So Granada is our next board member, District 4. Thank you. Congratulations, Granada. Well, if you are just hearing us. Thank you, Kathy, as well. Let's move to the next item is item number 2, informational item. Presentation and update on the Open Space Authority Integrated Pest Management Program. David Monk is going to do that. David, please.
Thank you, members of the board. It's my pleasure to present to you tonight. I'm really glad that you're giving us this opportunity to give you an update on some of our IPM operations over the past 2 years. Tonight, I'll be talking about our integrated pest management program, some successes we've had, including new developments. In 2021, we adopted our integrated pest management manual, which has helped pave the way for some of these improvements. And our integrated pest management is guided by the philosophy that it's a science-based decision-making system used to designate and control pest populations to limit their impacts, as well as risk to people and the environment. In order to facilitate that, we've made 4 key developments over the last 2 years, and specifically the last year. We've adopted a new position, the natural resource technician, which is the one I'm currently filling. We've integrated our CalFlora web-based reporting system amongst the field staff as well as the natural resource staff. We've also adopted an entirely new policy for us, the early detection and rapid response, also known as EDRR process. And we've also increased our capacity to utilize volunteers for IPM projects. I'll start tonight talking a little bit more about CalFlora. It's a web-based reporting structure hosted by the University of California, Berkeley. It provides us a robust suite of tools for our IPM work, including tracking our invasive species across our properties, recording the work we do, recording our hours in one place, and recording the supplies and equipment utilized. It also enables field data collection by our field staff using a phone-based app available on all of our staff phones. This enables our staff to be able to record on the spot in the field the work they're doing and collected in a central geographic database that we can later use for planning, which I'll talk about some more. As I said, this moves all of our reporting and recording apparatuses into one system, as opposed to being decentralized across different Excel spreadsheets. Additionally, it integrates with GIS programming so that we're able to view these treatments on a live map that we curate. It's also a tool for strategic planning to make sure that we're focusing our efforts in the most efficient and the effective manner. It also helps us prepare for our upcoming expansions in terms of our operations by recording the work we've done in the past, converting that into data that can be extrapolated for future planning. The photos here show just a few of the different ways we utilize that data, all pulled from one database now. Specifically, the mapping capability has been vital. It allows us to record area much easier and direct our staff to where they need to be. To facilitate it, we've set up an annual cycle of training. You see on the photos on the right there, a few of our field staff out conducting their first initial training with CalFlora. We facilitated this using ourselves as the Natural Resource Department and specifically the Natural Resource Technician position to bring together the needed schedules and personnel for training. We also conducted a mid-year refresher training that I facilitated for our staff to help any newly onboarded staff to get knowledgeable about the system and how it works, as well as preparing to continue this training cycle so that everyone can continue to become proficient with this new reporting tool. The second thing I'd like to talk about tonight is early detection and rapid response. Early detection and rapid response is a newer way of tracking invasive species to prevent them from becoming a problem before they've become established, or to prevent weeds that we're familiar with from becoming established in new places. So it's structured, focused, and centers around an annual surveying cycle, but is also flexible to allow us to detect and treat these different invasive plants as we find them. And it's divided into two priorities. One of the priorities are plants that we have that have become known to other agencies in the region to be highly invasive and high priority to prevent new infestations of. And the second priority are ones that we do know of in our properties, but which are highly invasive and we would like to prevent from infesting new locations. Early detection rapid response has already yielded us some results. What you'll see on the photo there on the right is a particularly difficult aquatic plant known as Arundodonyx, also giant reed. You can see where it gets this name because if you see how tall I am right here in person, that's me in the photo. It's at least 3 times as tall as me. We were able to locate a patch of this, rapidly treat it, monitor it for 2 cycles now, and continue to have good control over this before it spreads into our other aquatic areas and become a problem further down some of those waterways. We've also detected another highly invasive aquatic plant that's more common throughout the county, known as big periwinkle, also scientific name Vinca major. And we've been able to treat this successfully with the use of volunteers. We've also been able to identify some of our widespread, highly invasive plants, such as stinkwort, Detrichia graveolens, in new places where most likely infested via corridors. One of the key goals of EDRR is to identify those avenues of infestation, monitor those closely, and watch for new infestations before they can become a problem. That one's particularly, as you can tell by my face in that photo, one that I would like to see eradicated from our county. The third thing I'd like to talk about is the relationship we've been able to build between the Natural Resources team, now department, and our volunteers team. Our volunteers have a long legacy of service for Open Space Authority, and we've long had legacy of community engagement as an authority. To build on this, using the natural resource technician and the ability to coordinate IPM efforts under one position, we can now target these volunteer events in a more strategic way and in a way that will be continuing and ongoing. Over the last 2 years, I've had the great pleasure of leading our volunteers on many projects specifically oriented at removing invasive plants, using those manual methods of people getting on the land and removing the whole plant. It's a highly effective way to do it, and we have highly effective volunteers. This position has also allowed us to strengthen that collaboration between the coordinators who make that happen. Our volunteer coordinator, Kat Hill, and our volunteer program manager, Gavin McGraw, or Gavin, sorry about that, Gavin Comstock, have worked very closely with me, and I've been able to work with them to develop some really exciting new volunteer opportunities, engage those volunteers with the work and with the land, and give them opportunities to be out there and also learn about the places we protect and why we protect them. Here's just a few photos of them out in the field. As you can see, they do a lot more than just pull weeds. They also have been able to help implement different new methods that help us reduce seed banks using materials that can target seed banks specifically in order to prevent weeds from coming back. We've been able to get some large groups out there, so partnering with our members of the community in businesses and volunteer organizations, strengthening those partnerships and getting more of that awareness out into the public about who we are, what we do, why it's important that we do it. So I'd really like to give a shout out to that volunteer team, those volunteers, and continue to grow this aspect of integrated pest management. And I'm looking forward to more successes in 2023 as we mature these processes, mature those ability to track, map, and create histories of our treatments, and then to develop data from that to focus our future treatments, as well as to continue to strengthen those partnerships with members of the community, to strengthen the work that's done between the field staff and natural resources department to continue that dynamic and keep our successes going into the future as we continue to grow as an authority. That concludes my presentation. And if it's open for questions, I'm here right now.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm kindly ask the board if they have any question to ask David.
I have a question. I'm a gardener, so I'm looking at, oh yeah, I recognize that. So some of these are probably migrated by birds and animals and wind patterns, right? So how do you, I would think that how do you track some of that aspect of weed management?
That's an excellent question. Animals can be vectors, including large mammals, birds you've mentioned. We do focus on tracking the plants where they establish. Oftentimes seeds will be dispersed, but they won't germinate. And so this is where early detection and rapid response is key. So if we target those areas where we know we're likely to get new infestations due to the transfer either from birds, animals, or people, we can detect those plants that do germinate and prevent them from continuing to propagate in the area before they've been able to become a problem.
That's fascinating to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members? My part.
I have a quick question about so do we partner with other agencies like for the Orinda, the water district, and then along Coyote Valley, the Caltrans? If they aren't doing their share, they're just going to create a future seed bank to blow onto our properties, especially as we get more and more of that valley.
Thank you. Thank you. That's actually a really great point. Is part of these efforts are to build those partnerships. We work closely with Valley Water, managing Valley Water properties, as well as conducting some of our IPM efforts alongside them. Additionally, CalFlora as a tool is one that's used now statewide by multiple agencies and allows us to share data with them and detect patterns that come from outside of our properties that we do manage, and maybe identify a problem that could be coming from somewhere else.
Any other question from the board?
Director Flaher has his hand raised.
Director
Director
Flaher.
Flaher, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, Helen got part of my question and Mike got the rest of it pretty much. So thank you both for those. But I also have a point here. Is this transportable out to, we talked about agencies. What about other private landowners and whatnot that may be interested in doing things on their properties that would help both them and us as we, seeds don't stop at a fence line kind of problem?
Thank you. That's a good question. Currently, we have the ability to share data from CalFlora and create products using CalFlora that we could assist in outreach. Currently, most of our outreach is done via the volunteer events and helping to inform people through there. I would be interested in the future if adjacent landowners and property owners and partner agencies that border us would be interested in sharing some data and partnering. As yet, we haven't had many requests for that. With the exception, I will say, of Alum Rock Park, we do work closely with the city of San Jose to conduct IPM operations across the border of those two, their park and our preserve, Sierra Vista Open Space Preserve. The team at Sierra Vista Open Space shares some time on Alum Rock City Park property to conduct IPM there, as well as other maintenance activities. And so in that respect, we are building that partnership.
This is Aaron Hebert, Natural Resources Manager. I'll just add to what David said, that weeds are a collective problem, and one of the organizations that OSA participates in is called the Weed Management Area, which is pretty much what it sounds like. And it tries to get at regional rankings and regional priorities for invasive species, and that participation is what sort of allows us to target things on OSA lands and work with neighbors.
And I can just add a little bit more to that. Derek Newman, Field Operations Manager. We do integrate with our landowners. Some of them will come up to us. We have really good relationships with several of them, including the cattle raisers that are out there. So we're sharing our knowledge with them as well, and what works and what doesn't. And sometimes in like Rancho Piñata del Oro, really leaning them away from buying French broom for a shield around their houses, because that's still for sale in Home Depot. And it's one of those things that gets down into the watershed and gets onto our property. So we do have those conversations with our neighbors as well on the technician level when they're out there.
Thank you. Any other board member has any other question?
I do, but I don't know how to raise my hand.
That's okay.
Thank you. So that's great about the different collaborations and sharing data. Do a lot of the other agencies use CalFlora?
Yes, in fact, they do. And in fact, some use it for purposes expanded outside of IPM, including our partners north of us and with OneTam, who are able to use it not only to track their IPM work, but also maintenance work that needs to be done to infrastructure that supports IPM, such as culvert maintenance.
Right.
Any other board member, please? No? Okay, so I'm kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Actually, this is a very valuable information you provided. So, thank you.
Thank you, members of the board.
Yeah, let's move to the next item, informational item. Discussion of 2023 legislative priorities. Lena is going to be present that. Lena, please.
Right. Good evening, directors. My name is Lena Ian. I'm our Community Impact and Policy Specialist, and it's nice to see everyone in person again. Tonight we'll be presenting, or I'll be presenting alongside Mark Landgraf on our 2023 legislative and policy priorities. And just want to give a shout out to our communications staff and our wide range of photographers for photos like this, because making these presentations just so easy. Oh, I put this in a fun order. I don't know how that happened, but okay, go back one. There we go. So just a brief background and framing. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to share staff's proposed priorities and strategies as we look ahead at the new year, and to gather your board's feedback and any ideas or recommendations that you all would like to share. Before we go into 2023 though, we can just share a few highlights from 2022. And there's much more information in the report, but just a couple of things to shout out. At the federal level, President Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which included $369 billion in climate change funding, including $19 billion for climate smart ag. At the state level, the legislature passed a historic climate resilience package as well, committing $54 billion over the next 5 years towards climate resilience projects. They also passed several key bills that relate to climate resilience, carbon sequestration, nature-based solutions, wildlife connectivity, and more. And then for just another great opportunity that came up was for Coyote Valley to be featured on as the feature photo on the California Natural Resources Agency Pathways to 30 by 30 report. And then at the local level, we continue to see investments made, such as in the Coyote Valley Monterey Corridor study, and just continued collaboration with our local partners, coalitions, and on reports such as the Climate Smart San Jose Natural and Working Lands Element Report. And so as we move into 2023, I will hand it off to Mark to discuss.
Do you want to go through the timeline first? Or?
Yep, that's a good idea. I've got another slide. This is the timeline. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the just kind of gives an idea of what we are talking about as we're looking ahead at the new year, what some of the key deadlines and dates are. And yeah, hopefully it's a useful resource now and as we move forward. Now I think I would pass it off. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, directors. Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager. So we're going to tag team here a little bit, and then I'll hand it back to Lena. Just for those of you in the room who see me scrolling on my phone, I'm not scanning Facebook. I'm just looking at my notes here. So just wanted to mention, as we go through some of the highlights here, the board report really has a great deal more detail on these priorities at the federal and state level. We do ask for your feedback as we're going through these. So if there's anything that you want to bring up, not just what we're highlighting here in the presentation, but I just wanted to mention also what's in the board report, please don't hesitate to do so. So I also wanted to mention that in the consent item earlier this evening, approval of our federal legislative consulting and lobbying firm, we will be getting them under contract very promptly and working on many of these priorities here very soon. So that's great that we have that movement forward. So as always, relationship building is key. We have some relationships with elected leaders at the federal level, but we want to build those up and in fact, work more closely with their district, with their staff in Washington, DC, which the consultants will help us do. They'll also help us get to know people representing the relevant federal agencies for grant programs. We're going to be exploring every opportunity for federal funding that can be applied to the projects that we're working on, especially given passage of the bills that Lena had mentioned earlier, and the prior year, the infrastructure bill that also has funding for habitat protection. The Farm Bill itself is something that we're also going to be tracking here very closely because it represents $400 billion, at least it has in the past, for spending on food and farm systems over a 5-year period. And so we're coordinating closely.
Mark, I have a question.
Yeah.
Relevant federal agencies, do you have any name or anything?
Sure. Very good question. So relevant federal agencies for us would be in the Department of the Interior. They have funding programs. Of course, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has grant programs. And within the Department of Interior, of course, there are many different agencies within that, Park Service, et cetera, Fish and Wildlife Service. So, and again, thank you for asking questions. That's exactly why we're here. So for the Farm Bill, we are coordinating with the American Farmland Trust and also a California organization, the Community Alliance for Family Farmers, that both of which help us have a common voice in DC. So we're working to influence the Farm Bill to make sure that it has programs that are relevant to our work. There's also a natural capital accounting plan that's been developed by a consortium of agencies within the federal government that proposes to account for and actually monetize the ecosystem services that natural and working lands provide, which is something new, especially at the federal level, and can help us reduce conversion of natural and working lands throughout the country. So we'll also be supporting efforts to have tribal recognition for our tribal partners and support funding for capacity building for those organizations as well. At the state level, again, relationship building is key. I do want to mention here, you know, we are working with agency partners on funding. Again, Lena earlier mentioned some of the allocations that have been made, record allocations for climate. And, you know, it's really overwhelming to many of our state agency partners. They're very interested in seeing implementation of 30 by 30 and climate smart strategy projects, and are very interested in seeing any creative solutions and streamlined processes for getting that money out the door. So our grants team is already working very closely with staff and will continue to do that in the coming year to access that funding for our projects. Again, tribal capacity building is top of mind for us, and any way we can support that, we're going to do that as well. On the policy side, I wanted to mention that we are working at the state level, but as well at the local level, where this intersection of conservation and housing exists, because we, of course, support both and want to influence in the best way we can how that work proceeds so that it's to the benefit of both sectors. But I'm going to leave to Lena to talk a little bit more about what we're doing in that realm. There's a citizens initiative that's also identified in your board report. I'm going to be talking about that in another agenda item here shortly. We will continue to support environmentally sensitive vegetation management, or ESVM, programs. There's currently funding allocated through the state budget for that, and there's likely to be legislation next year. So we would propose to continue to support that effort. Also, there have been workshops recently to work with the Deputy Secretary at Resources for Outdoor Access, and allowing us to help shape the programs that would be developed to bring more equitable access to residents throughout the state. And recently, one of those workshops was convened by our partners at Together Bay Area, and that was a very successful conference. And then one more thing I wanted to mention, and before I hand it back to Lena, is that we're also working with a group of partners that are doing a lot of integrative pest management and restoration projects around the state on an issue that's come up at the Wildlife Conservation Board, especially from one of their board members who is very concerned about the use of glyphosate, or more commonly known as Roundup. So the members who spoke at the most recent Wildlife Conservation Board meeting were saying, you know, agencies and nonprofits around the state are using glyphosate in very sparing amounts, only where they need to, because there's no reasonable alternative. But it is a tool that's very important to have in the toolbox. And what I've heard from our resource management staff is that the same is the case for us. And so we've been advocating for continued judicious use of glyphosate for those projects, not only funded by WCB, but including those projects, so that it doesn't slow down the important work that we can do in our local area to support 30 by 30 implementation and other state initiatives. So that's an ongoing discussion, but I wanted you all to be aware that that's going on, and we'll continue to keep you apprised. So with that, I want to hand back to Lena.
Thank you, Mark. So as Mark mentioned, an area that we've been starting to work in more, and that there's just really productive and exciting conversations going on, and is around land use and the intersection of conservation and climate and housing production goals. And so in these conversations, we are hoping to just continue to see more improved collaboration and shared language around the goals that we're working towards in terms of smart land use, and ultimately the conservation of natural and working lands for ecosystem and ecological benefits, but as well as human benefits. And yeah, and then just kind of in that same realm of just trade-offs and compromise, and also just consistent mapping as we're talking about areas that we would like to see development versus conservation. And so there's a lot of opportunities to implement these ideas and goals. And so a few of those specific opportunities include, for one, the local housing element updates. So for the city of San Jose and Santa Clara County, they are both going through the process of updating their housing elements to integrate one piece being to integrate the regional housing needs allocations, and for the cycle number 6. And so there have been some challenges in doing that, especially in regards to allocations for unincorporated areas. And so we are continuing to work with partners, both to understand ourselves the process from the housing perspective, as well as trying to articulate what some of the concerns are from a natural and working lands point of view. And so really exciting conversations, and hoping to continue to build those relationships moving forward. And also with the next cycle for RHNA, if there are opportunities to really dig into the site analyses and criteria for development, and really address some of the concerns that we're seeing now in this past cycle earlier on in the process. And then another opportunity is around we're working on a white paper with the Nature Conservancy and a few other partners, really focused on this issue and conversation around conservation and housing. And yeah, just a few other items around strengthening natural working lands protection policies. And lastly, priority conservation area, the revamp. And so there's a technical advisory group that has been starting to convene recently. And their goal is to just understand the strengths and weaknesses currently of the PCAs, or priority conservation areas, to develop goals and to assess options for integration moving forward, and in the next Plan Bay area, which will be mid-2023. So with that, a few other local priorities. Again, just continuing to support local investments in the work that is relevant to our mission. Policy areas include natural working lands protection and opposition to sprawl development, climate resilience and nature-based solutions, outdoor access and community engagement, and continuing to work in collaboration with and as participants in different coalitions, such as the Santa Clara County Climate Collaborative, the Santa Clara Valley Urban Forestry Alliance, which is a part of that collaborative, the San Jose Community Forestry Management Plan Advisory Group, and continuing to support San Jose's Office of Climate Resilience. And I believe that wraps it up. So happy to answer any questions.
Kindly ask the board if they have any question about this item or comments.
Mike, I had a question or two. on some of the federal officials, have we engaged much with Senator Padilla's office? He's our, gonna be our senator for a while, I believe.
Yeah, through the chair. We have not yet done so. We've been working with the current federal consultant to set that up for us. And then, have been doing this transition to a new contract with a federal consultant, but we plan to do so.
I'm happy to be helpful in that way because I worked with him when he was in the legislature. So.
Thank you.
Great relationship there.
We'll definitely contact you about that.
Good. Use us as a resource when we have things like that on some stuff. And then are there any bills that we're planning? Are we working on carrying it to getting any legislation this cycle? Or is it a little early still?
So through the chair, we've had a strategy session with our state consultants, PPG, Pacific Policy Group, and have discussed our priorities, which we're presenting to you here tonight. Through that has not emerged any specific legislation that we would be sponsoring at this point. There could well be a budget ask for the Coyote Valley Conservation Program, but there could be legislation that emerges and we can keep you apprised of that, but so far nothing's been identified.
It's, I think, going to be another good budget cycle, at least at the state level. I think it'll be pretty tough to get any more money out of Washington since they've been so active, but it might, I think that's a good approach right there. And then when you were talking about the federal officials, somebody not to be overlooked, I think, would be the Secretary of Transportation, who has really pushed for a lot of different things. So perhaps around the airport in San Martin to do some, as they look to perhaps phase out one airport in the San Jose area, they may need to wire some protections around it. So that would be airport related, but also could be ag related. It's not housing related.
Interesting. Yeah, really good point. Thank you.
Really, really smart Secretary of Transportation we've got. So if anybody could come up with a way to do that, I'm happy to work with you on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any board member have any questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for all the hard work and especially to Lena and Mark. And I know your work with San Jose and the housing element is critical. So thank you for your engagement.
Thank you.
Kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Actually, this is a good information. They did a fantastic job. So try to be updated. I'm not quarterly, might be every month. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So let's move to the next item. Is item number 4. Authorize the general manager to enter into contract with the California Conservation Crops to hand construct approximately 4,900 feet of trail of the Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve Public Access Improvement Project. Derek Newman is going to be presented. Derek, please.
Good evening, directors. It's my pleasure to bring this before you. This is part of Lucas Schellhammer's and Jennifer Hooper's project of Coyote Ridge to bring public access out to our 1,800 acre preserve. This one in particular is a small segment of trail that we will be building with the California Conservation Corps. Reason why we're selecting the California Conservation Corps for this segment of trail is the minimum impact for trail construction out on the reserve. As you know, it's serpentine soils. It has a lot of endemic plants and species that are native to those soils. So we do not want to bring large bulldozers and or excavators out there to construct these trails when we can use minimum impact standards, which is something that the California Conservation Corps has excelled at over the years. This is the South Ascent Trail. It's that dashed line right there, kind of in the center of the map on the lower section with the arrow pointing to it from the California Conservation Corps. So as part of the 6 to 7 mile trail loop that we are constructing, most of the trail is going to be converted from ranch roads. And we have a couple segments that we'll be building by hand. This is one of them here in the South Ascent. Later on, once the main construction is done at the staging area, we'll be hand constructing a smaller segment, what we call the North Ascent Trail, going up to that. And that'll be done primarily by staff. A little bit about the California Conservation Corps, formed in 1976, modeled after the original civilian conservation corps that was immediately after the Great Depression. Governor Jerry Brown instituted it. It's primarily a program for young adults, 18 to 25 years old. These are considered youth at risk, and they have an ability to join this program for 1 year and gain a lot of skills that will help them in this field, the natural resources field, but also it can serve them in any number of jobs throughout the state and or other public agencies. They reflect the diversity of California. There's 1,600 positions that are available each year, and they come from all throughout the state of California. Predominantly, the three main areas that the California Conservation Corps comes from is the greater Los Angeles area, the Central Valley, and then also here up in the Bay Area. So they come from all over the state. Those are the three main geographical areas. It's a year-long commitment, even though a lot of them do not make it through that year because they get job offers. The average length of the Corps member that's there is about 9 months. So they're gaining the skills necessary to become active members of our society here in California through the programs that the California Conservation Corps offers them. So currently this year they have 76% men and 24% women. That's a trend that we see a lot in the field for field work like this. So it doesn't surprise me that we have those. We do try to get as diverse as we can, but sometimes positions just don't speak to all the candidates out there. Since the inception, the California Conservation Corps has provided 74.1 million hours of work throughout the state working on natural resource projects. They do about 900 projects annually throughout the state, and these vary in all kinds of different scenarios. They are also members of our emergency response team as a state. So it's not just projects that they're working on that they get solicited for like by us, but it's also responding to some of the natural disasters that happen without the state. They also work for the federal agencies as well. So their workforce is a diverse thing that a lot of different agencies are expecting them to require from. Directly for us, they've built about over almost 12,000 miles of trail throughout the state. So that speaks directly to their experience. While the Corps members are 1 year, the leaders of the Corps can be lifers. So those people that move up through the Corps sometimes get leadership positions within the Corps, and they end up being within that for an extended period of time. The foreman of this one here, Chad, he has been with the Corps for 13 years. He came up through the ranks of it and became one of their major leaders. And when we were out there with him, we're looking at the trail alignment, he definitely has the skills that we're looking for and knows how to build trail. It's one of kind of an interview when we take him out to look at the site itself. They also have over 11 million hours improving parks and natural spaces throughout the state. So again, really extensive knowledge and experience working in this kind of environment. Serpentine is new for them. So they looked at it as a challenge of being like, okay, we can take this on head on. We've never done a serpentine one before. Asbestos had always tripped them up. And until recently, they were really shied away from that. Working with Lucas Shellhammer, we worked through their concerns with asbestos. They wanted to try it. They thought this would be a great project to work on. And then developing the best management practices of working in serpentine, we were able to share that with them. They were comfortable with it. They're hazardous materials expert and risk management specialist work closely with us to ensure that we're meeting the safety of the Corps working within the serpentine soils. So that was a really cool partnership to work with them and actually give them something that's unique and new. And maybe someone will be presenting like me to some other one saying about our project and how they've gained the skills to work within their environment out there. So what they're going to be doing for us will be 4,800 feet of trail tread construction out there. A lot of it's going to be scraping away the soil surface to make it 2% outsloped on the surface, removing rocks in the way that are there, and then building some switchbacks, installing additional rock to ensure that those switchbacks meet the grade out there, and then building 4 climbing turns within this segment of trail. The whole idea behind this is that our trail is comfortable to walk on and that the visitor has a seamless experience going from the ranch road into the natural environment, then back ultimately to the ranch road up on top. And with that, I open it up for any kind of questions.
Kindly ask the board if they have any question about this item.
I'm curious about the male to female ratio. What do you think? Why is that trend?
Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the physicality of the work, scares away the female portion of it, when in reality, it's really not as physical as we believe. So it's a lot about getting that message out there and then working through them. And then from my experience working at West Valley College, a lot of it is like enlightening and showing them that it's not as physical as they think. They think they need to wait, our job requirements will say the ability to lift 60 pounds. So they think that they're going to be carrying 60 pounds the entire time. And that's not the reality of it. The reality is that you pick it up maybe for like 1 or 2 minutes at the most.
Equipment that can lift
Yes.
60 pounds, right?
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of ability to use mechanical advantage throughout it. So a lot of it is about getting the message out there of what the work truly is, rather than the perception of what it is. And I think that's what you're seeing here too.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Derek, if I might. Derek, could you maybe just share with the board members, how long will the Corps be out there? Like, how long will it take to build this trail, and where will they be staying? How do we help take care of their needs while they're doing this?
Yes. So the Corps there'll be 2 9-day sessions to build the trail. We have 1 optional third week that's going to help with that. That's part of the contingency plan that we have. We expect them to take the 2 9-day ones to complete the trail. To make this more convenient for them, we also offered up the Tilton Ranch site to be able to spike out. Spiking out is camping. So they normally come from Watsonville. Normally they would travel every day from Watsonville, basically 1.5 hours to get out here, work for 8 or 9 hours, then take 1.5 hour ride back to Watsonville. We changed that up, and now it's a 5-minute ride over to the Tilton Ranch complex, where they'll be camping out in the gravel lot there, and they'll have a much more enjoyable time there. Going to work with our educational department to see if we can get our educational department to go out there too and do some interpretation at night while they're sitting around a campfire, and do some campfire programming for them as well. Talk to a little bit about the natural history of the Santa Clara Valley. So that's going to be a really cool component part of this too, is their ability to camp here. Normally when they're spiking out on a spot, it's because they're fighting fires. So this will be a nice relaxing spike out for them.
Any other board member? No. So kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There are none.
Kindly ask the board, please entertain the motion to approve.
Approval.
Second.
So we have a motion moved by Director Potter and a second by Director Chapman. Kindly ask Kelly a roll call vote, please.
Director Kenneth?
Yes.
Director Slaughter?
Yes.
Director Chapman?
Yes.
Director Alexander?
Yes.
Director Potter?
Yes.
Director Gill?
Yes. Okay, so this item is passed unanimously. Go ahead, please. Build the trail. Build the trail.
One more step forward.
Yes.
One step at a time. Thank you. Let's move to the next item, item number 5. Adopt resolution 22-86, opposing a citizen initiative entitled the Taxpayer Protections and Government Accountability Act. Mark Lambert, please.
Good evening again, directors. Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for this, so we'll just speak briefly through the item that you have in your board report. This item asks you to consider adopting a resolution in opposition to Citizens Initiative 21-0042A1. As stated in the board report, the latest from the California Secretary of State's website showed that it's still undergoing signature verification. The goal of the initiative is to qualify for the November 2024 ballot. The initiative seeks to amend the state constitution to require 2/3 majority to pass any local special taxes. Another provision would restrict the ability of local governments to issue fines and penalties to corporations and property owners that violate local environmental and other laws and ordinances. Also wanted to note that the initiative would apply its provisions retroactively to January 1st, 2022. So with that, I'd like to pass it along to our legal counsel for his comments on the potential impacts to our work.
Thank you, Mark. This initiative wouldn't affect any of our existing measures, such as Measure T. So it would have no impact on that. As Mark mentioned, it only is retroactive till early this year. And our initiatives are prior to that period of time. The biggest effects it has is on state government, where currently the legislature by a 2/3 vote pass taxes or voters approve it with a majority. And so now it would require to go to the electorate automatically. So that it would have a huge impact on the state government. As far as Mark had mentioned, enforcement, fines and penalties, what this initiative does is expand fees, certain fees that government charges and other charges would actually be considered taxes and therefore would need voter approval. I will say that there's some language that we're still reviewing in this initiative. As Mark mentioned, it hasn't yet been certified for the election yet. For November of 2024, they're still checking signatures, but we're still looking at a couple of items to see how would it affect any future measure of the Open Space Authority. So far, I think probably the impact is not major, but there is some thought that some of the vague language in the initiative does have some other implications that may impact our ability to pass an initiative. And what Mark had mentioned was all local taxes would need 2/3 vote. What that means is currently, as you know, our measures required a 2/3 vote, but the Supreme Court had determined that citizen-driven initiatives, ones that are put on the ballot by citizens, only need a majority vote. So this initiative would foreclose the ability of citizens to they could still put a measure on the ballot, but it would require a 2/3 vote instead of a majority. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Is that from state Supreme Court decisions, there is the ability for citizens initiatives to put measures on the ballot for funding, which would require only 50% plus one. And so this taxpayer initiative would close that so-called loophole. Correct, Bill?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, you didn't hear me, I guess. That is exactly correct. That currently citizen-driven initiatives, ones put on the ballot by citizens directly, only require a majority vote. The Supreme Court had determined that. This would raise that threshold to 2/3.
The other piece that I asked Bill to look into is there's some language in this Taxpayer Accountability Act that looks at trying to limit the ability of government agencies who put tax measures on the ballot from building in COLAs, cost of living, or other adjustments to try and keep pace with inflation, and requires that government agencies can only charge in a measure the exact amount, the minimum exact amount that it costs to provide the service. But as we know, the cost of providing a service increases as the cost of living goes up, and that's one of the things we're seeing. And I also just wanted to mention that this came to us through the California Special Districts Association. So there's a request from the CSDA that's gone to most of the special districts in California, asking their board of directors to please take a look at this, this potential measure.
And in fact, I can add that the California Special Districts Association has already formally opposed, and they have information on their website that includes other opposition that's already been registered. And so with that, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Kindly ask the board if they have any questions to ask Mark or Bill.
I'd be happy to move to oppose.
Second.
Kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There are none.
Okay, so it's not working, right?
I just initiated the motion to allow you to ask for public comment before the motion was made. So it should be working now. I can manually, Director Kennett made the motion and this.
Second.
Thank you.
Director Chapman.
Are you seeing it now?
Yes. I didn't know this.
Thank you.
Okay, so kindly request the roll call vote, please.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flogger,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. So this item is passed unanimously also. Thank you, Mark. The last item under the new business is item number 6. Adopts resolution 22-27 proclaiming a local emergency, re-rectifying the proclamations of a state of emergency issued on March 4, 2022 by Governor Gavin Newsom, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meeting of the legislative bodies of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority for the period October 13 through November 12, 2022, pursuant to Brown Act provision. Kelly is going to present that item. Kelly, please.
Minimal presentation here. This is our 30-day resolution to allow us to hold remote meetings in the event we need to.
I'm kindly ask the board if they have any question about this item. No. Kindly ask if any member of the public would like to make any comments on this item.
There are none.
None. Then I kindly ask the board, please entertain the motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. So we have the motion moved by Director Alexander and then seconded by Director Kennett. Kelly, roll call vote, please.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flogger,
Yes.
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. So it's passed again unanimously one more month.
Thank you.
Remote meeting. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next item on the agenda is committee meetings summary, Citizen Advisory Committee. So, Dr. Chapman.
I can do this.
Yeah.
It was, no, I attended the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. I would say it was a very spirited discussion over a topic that will be coming to the board, so I look forward to staff working on the item and bringing it back to us and to see how it will be presented. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
It had to do with the naming of Coyote Ridge.
Thank you, Director Chairman. So Administration and Budget Committee did meet, and we have only one items, review the application and recommend appointment by the Board of at-large Citizen Advisory Committee representative. So there are, before that, we have actually 3 candidates, then we had one more candidate. We had did get the chance to chat with the candidates, and we just ask a very valuable question to understand his ability to align with the OSA's mission, and directed to the staff to put that item on the next meeting agenda, might be October 27, if I'm not wrong. So they will bring all the candidate in front of the board, then we can decide who will be the best candidate for our OSA team. So, Director Kenneth, do you want to add anything?
You covered it.
Director Chapman.
We asked some questions and he gave
Lead
good answers.
No, thank you very much. So, next item is an informational report. General Manager report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a couple brief report outs from our leadership team. I'll start with Matt Freeman.
Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, directors. A couple of updates. The first is I'd like to build on Derek Newman's presentation about Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve. A little more information. So we have broken ground. Our contractor has been out there for almost 2 weeks now, apparently making great progress to complete the grading ahead of the rains. So far, so good. Things are going very, very well. We're on schedule. If we stay on schedule, the construction should wrap up in spring, late April 2023. At that time, we might be able to entertain some soft opening type events, partners, stakeholders. We're tentatively aiming for a more formal ribbon cutting ceremony, fall of 2023. And to build a little bit more on Derek's comments, because this is one of the most sensitive habitats in the Bay Area with the serpentine, we're being very, very careful to ensure that introducing public access to this sensitive location doesn't have any unintended consequences or that we don't love the plants and animals to death. So our staff are being very considerate in developing new protocols. We've never pioneered in any of our other open space preserves to take a measured, phased approach that involves a lot of careful monitoring and observation with the ability to implement new kind of protective measures as necessary. So the operation at this preserve will kind of look and feel a little bit unique compared to some of the other preserves, but this is such an important opportunity to demonstrate how we can integrate public access, into such a sensitive location. And if we do it right, really help the public understand what a unique opportunity they have to experience conservation of some of our most sensitive habitats. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity. And really excited to see that new trail. And I'm excited about the fireside chat with the C's. And then another update, I just wanted to remind you all that our urban grant program is open. The deadline is November 8th for pre-application process. This is new this year. The pre-application is a very, very light lift for applicants, and it's designed to ensure that the project is eligible and that it's a good fit without making applicants have to go through all of the hoops and hurdles of describing the scope of work and the budget that's entailed in the full application. Full applications are due later in February. This is one of our most important programs to help connect people to nature close to where they live. It really helps us achieve some of our equity goals, especially with attention focused on soliciting applications in our deep engagement communities. So I just wanted to remind you that this is open. The website is outstanding. Please direct your networks to our website. If you want any additional information, don't hesitate to let us know. Jackie Latham is kind of administering the program. She's spending a lot of time coaching people through the pre-application process. And again, we hope we'll get a really, really great batch of project proposals. So again, don't hesitate. If you have any questions as staff, we can help you push this through your channels and your networks. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. Lee?
Thank you. Good evening, directors. I just wanted to quickly say thank you all for making the extra effort this evening to come down in person. We really appreciate it. Dr. Flaher, we know you're here in spirit. Thank you for participating virtually and everyone coming prepared to be patient tonight, just in case, for our first hybrid board meeting. And I really want to thank the clerk's office, Kelly and Caroline. You've done a heck of a lot of work. There've been a lot of practicing. We've been sitting in your chairs, taking turns being directors, so that we could get some miles on this model. So I really appreciate it. And then also to Elizabeth and Justina, who sat back very quietly, just in case they need to jump in and help with any technology or anything else. So just really appreciate a successful meeting tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Lee. Mark, did you have any additional items? Okay. And how about Derek Newman or Aaron Bear? Any things to share with the board tonight? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So the next item is legal counsel's report.
I have nothing. I have nothing to report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members report, liaison update and comments. And start with the director. Kenneth, please.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate our staff, our two duos there who I think we're that close. It's almost there. It's really great. So other than that, any of you who haven't or are planning to go out to the pumpkin patch, it's really something else. It's Disneyland in Coyote Valley for all of our activities. That's all I have.
Director Chairman, please.
I want to echo my congratulations. It feels so good to be in person. And I feel like a director, a grown up now. And also I will be in contact with you, Matt, because I attended I have to say, I'm always enthusiastic when I see students, because I sit on the Lincoln Foundation board and I had students present a proposal today, and it was like, you're speaking my language. They were talking about sequestration and climate resilience, and I'm like, so, not to pressure you or anything, but I want to make sure that they're guided through, and to give them an opportunity, because when I see young people come forward that are really interested in the work that we're doing, I get excited.
Schools are eligible. This is great.
Yes. Women, yes. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Director Alexander, please.
No report.
Director Porter, please.
No report, but I do think I might not be here for the November 10th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You might take a vacation?
Definitely taking a vacation. I don't know if it's Thursday or Friday.
I have one information actually. I don't want to just make everybody sad, but this is my, I have to be just help. Might be you guys know already, city of Merced. So there is one family board members, they was actually murdered the last week by their former employees. So the guy was doing the trucking business. That person was only 36-year-old. His brother was 39 and his wife was 27. And more importantly is a 8-month girl. Those are all 4 people kidnapped and then they killed the same day in the fields. So the mainly that is a Indian. And the second is Punjabi. The third is a Sikh. The fourth one is just my neighbor village, just close to just 1 mile from my village to their village. So throughout the United States, they are doing actually the candle light vehicles. So we did the last night in our Sikh temples, and this is a very bad news. So just want to be shared with you. Yeah. If we don't have any other business, then the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. See you next meeting. Good night and rest of the night.
Have a question?
My